Radio Row's never the same 2 years running, is it? And Las Vegas, first visit for the NFL as well. To this point, seems to be living up to the billing, but there's a long way to go.
Yeah. I mean, the idea of it being in Las Vegas is crazy because, like, 8 years ago, there was all sorts of the Tony Romo thing with fantasy football. Tony Romo wanted to put on a show about fantasy football, and the NFL kiboshed it because it was too close to gambling. And in those 8 years, the NFL has run into the welcoming arms of gambling and caught up with the rest of the world. So yeah, now they're married, and it's pretty wild that the Super Bowl is here.
But yet again, for your home market, there's no Dallas Cowboys. Now I know growing up, you grew up in Wisconsin,
Yes, sir.
Packers fan, but you spent much of your working life in the Fort Worth area. And for the team that's the richest sports organization in the world across all sports to not even make it to an NFC championship game in 28 years, I guess if nothing else, it gives the local networks plenty to talk about.
Yes, and it makes the local fans very defeated, and they lose all optimism. And it's up to guys like me to continue to cover the team as the best we can, but we don't really have to clear our calendar for Super Bowl week, usually for Cowboy endeavors. But 10,000 days in the wilderness has tried everybody's patience to the highest degree, and then this year's defeat kind of sent the hearts back to sadness. They don't. It's a whole generation of Cowboy fans that have never seen a winner, and the rest of the world kind of laughs because the Cowboys were so insufferable for 3 decades, I'm sure. But this last generation, it's famine. They enjoyed the feast, and now they're not enjoying the famine as much.
Yeah, absolutely. We'll discuss that in greater detail a little later on, but let's turn our attention to the focus of this week. A repeat of the Super Bowl 4 years ago, the best team in the NFC against what many would argue coming into this week is the best team of the current generation.
Yeah, and it's a great conversation, isn't it? So when you talk about a team that's been favored in every game this season, that's San Francisco, a complete team, really great defense, phenomenal offense with playmakers at every position. And so it's like, okay, who can handle these guys? And then on the other side, it's a team that, in my opinion, is one win from a dynasty. Yeah, so I have very strict benchmarks on what we throw around dynasty all the time. It's got to be 3 titles in the span of 6 years. That's in every sport. If you can win 3 and 6 or 4 and 8, you are a dynasty. Everyone else are just really good teams that could have been better. And so the Chiefs are right on that doorstep, and they have obviously the best player of this generation in Patrick Mahomes. And we've been covering him since he was in college at Texas Tech playing losing football. So to see him grow into this greatest of all time discussion, at least, is crazy. But it's kind of like I said, the barroom discussion is best quarterback or best team. Who do you like in those matchups? And that makes it fun.
Well, and to that end, when you look at this weekend's matchup, for 5 years, the Kansas City Chiefs have always been about the offense, the Mahomes to Kelsey connection. This year, that's not necessarily been the case, and yet, when it's mattered most, they've still found a way to win.
Yeah, and people often say it's his worst team. I don't agree. Nobody should agree with that. You could say it's worst offense in terms of playmakers or explosiveness, but it's one of his better teams because the dream for a quarterback is I get help from my defense. I don't have to score 35. I can win in Baltimore with 17. Mahomes has never seen that, and so we're now entering the phase of Mahomes' career where it's almost Tom Brady-like, where I can beat you any way you want. We can do this 10 different ways. It could be explosions, or it can be death by 1,000 paper cuts. And that's the true test of greatness is, can I beat you without my best, or can I beat you with, beating zones instead of beating man, with short plays instead of long plays. And so Mahomes is that guy, and with that defense from Steve Spagnuolo, who has put together a wonderful team that gets pass pressure so well, covers in the back, they are formidable to say the least.
Well, if Mahomes is that guy, what guy is Kyle Shanahan, the head coach of the San Francisco 49ers? Because whether he likes it or not, he's got a history in the Super Bowl of blowing double-digit leads. It's happened twice in the last 7 years. He could have had 2 Super Bowl winners' rings, quite conceivably at this point. He doesn't have any. How much does that weigh on his shoulders and that of his team coming into this weekend?
I would imagine a lot, but I'll also tell you he is on the extremely short list. In fact, he might be the only guy on the list that I would trade 2 first-round picks to go get him. Like, he is a coach that is unbelievable. In all my work with Troy Aikman, who does so much broadcast work, he's told me a number of times, like if there's one coach that you want in this league, it's Kyle Shanahan. So it's weird that he does have this inability at the end, or maybe it's coincidence, whatever you want to say. He hasn't done the big trophy yet. And so when that happens, I think we'll have to start talking about Shanahan where he rightfully belongs. But his work in San Francisco, and really his work as an offensive designer, going back to Atlanta, going back to Washington, anywhere you want to go in his career, he has such a feel for modern offense. He has influenced so many coaches now down in Miami, over in Green Bay, all these different places that have Houston, that have Shanahan clones now running their teams. So his influence is unbelievable. Obviously, he owes his dad a fair amount for that influence, but the Shanahan family has really, shown us how innovation can keep moving the sport forward and advancing what works and what doesn't work generation to generation.
And I guess we may well find out some of those answers this Sunday afternoon, as we might have about Brock Purdy as well, because it's a sensational story,
right,
from Mr. Irrelevant to starter in a Super Bowl inside just 2 years.
Yes.
And yet, I've heard it here already in the 48 hours I've been in Vegas, said a number of times, we think he is perhaps more of a game manager than a game breaker.
Yeah.
Can that really be accurate? Is that fair, having seen what we have to this point?
It's such an overanalyzed position, and I will put my hand up as one who, when he left Iowa State, I'm like, this guy probably makes the league, probably is a good backup. There's no way he's a starter, and there's certainly no way he's a starter for a Super Bowl team or a Super Bowl champion. So what we're seeing now is a lot of guys like me saying, well, I guess none of that mattered because he is now one game away from immortality. And then what do you say? So what I saw at Iowa State, and it's interesting because Patrick Mahomes also had a very underwhelming college career. And so we see that you are allowed to improve. You are allowed to join a team that now has advantages personnel-wise around you that makes you better. There's just and coaching, and who you come in contact with. There's so many things about this position that we think about all the time here when we love this sport. It's all about quarterback. And so we can measure certain things, arm strength, speed, all these things. We can't measure cognitive abilities at the same level, and he does have an ability to see the game at a high level, and he also meets those moments where he has to figure out a solution on the fly, and he does it. So we can sit there and watch his tape all day and then say, well, he can't do this and this and this. What I've learned is we probably should also focus on what can he do, and what we've seen in these playoffs is not perfect from Brock Purdy at all, but he has figured out a solution to his problems in time. And that's the sport. That's the job. And he's done that very well. So he's going to make absurd amounts of money very soon. And especially if he can close this deal Sunday, he'll be a made man. There's nothing nobody can say anything once you are holding that trophy about a guy's career, because that's the Mount Everest of the sport.
As you see it then from your perspective, what is the key to this game from both sides' point of view? How do they win it?
Well, for me, the key for the 49ers is to not fall behind. We've seen Green Bay get ahead of them. We've seen Detroit get ahead of them. But both of those teams were kind enough to turn the ball over and to give them chances to grab that game back. Kansas City won't do that. Patrick Mahomes has made zero turnover-worthy plays in these playoffs. He is not making mistakes. You should not expect turnovers. You should not expect him to help you. So the way the 49ers can win this game, in my opinion, is run the football, get a lead, and play the game on your terms. Do not start slow. Do not start nervy. If any of these things, and it's looked like an issue those first two games, but maybe on Sunday they can start on their front foot, maybe even win the toss and go down and score, and that will be their key to victory, because they can win this game for sure. They're favored, but they can't play this game from behind. From a Chiefs standpoint, I really think so much of that is like, maybe we just stop thinking and say they have that guy who is Michael Jordan and Tiger Woods at times, where you're just like, you have this relentless force of nature who figures it out. Mahomes is so good, and then Kelsey is such a matchup problem. Their offensive line, It has to be better than they were in that Super Bowl they lost to Tampa Bay. But I'll tell you, if you ask for a pick, I'm taking Kansas City. But I can't get out of my head Nick Foles beating Tom Brady in the Super Bowl 5-6 years ago. And so many times we talk for a week or 2 weeks about this game and we have it all figured out, and then the game happens and it's nothing like we imagined. I mean, it's sports. It's why we love this thing, and it's why we probably shouldn't gamble too much. But, in the end, Kansas City has a quiet confidence that they've been here and they play like champions, and they have another gear in the playoffs that is scary. So I'm going to lean towards them, but I've also feared San Francisco all season as this. So it's an unbelievably great matchup. I'm so happy we get this game. It's everything we wanted.
Absolutely. Thanks for your time, Bob. Appreciate it.
It's my pleasure. Anytime.